Good afternoon and welcome to the Gold, Goats, and Guns short news for Monday, April 22nd, 2019. My name's Tom Luongo. Good afternoon and welcome to the Gold, Goats, and Guns. Let's stop that. So, sorry about that. So, my name's Tom Luongo. I'm still getting used to this whole thing, trying to handle this thing on my laptop. Appreciate you all dropping by. I want to talk about Elizabeth Warren today. So you can follow me over at Twitter at TFL1728. And please, if you like what you hear today, please bang the like and subscribe button. We talk geopolitics, we talk politics, we talk a whole bunch of things. And let's get right to it. So, all right. Elizabeth Warren, trying desperately to remain relevant in the 2020 Democratic Democratic primary season, hovering around and slowly falling off of the 6% cliff. Now, those of you who know me know that I believe very strongly in the 16% chasm branding issue, but in this case, she's like at the top end or the bottom end of the top tier of the five candidates. According to the latest polling on Real Clear Politics, you've got Joe Biden still polling around 30%. You've got Bernie Sanders at around 22.5%. You've got Beto O'Rourke, the fake Mexican, at just under 9%. Kamala Harris at 8.5%, and somebody I don't even know yet, Buttigieg. Who the hell knows who this person is? Coming out of nowhere is already at 6%. And Warren slowly falling off a cliff at 6%. Spartacus, Cory Booker, has got no traction at 3%. And my personal favorite, Tulsi Gabbard, she's less than 1%. So, fascinating to watch this play out, right? So Elizabeth Warren sitting at the bottom tier of the 6%, at this bottom tier of the first tier of candidates. And so, as always, she's got to do something, right? Because we're coming up on the make or break portion of the primary season. She's got to do something to break out of this pack. She's done this before. Originally she came out and said we want a 70% top tax bracket for income taxes. Bernie Sanders then had to go farther than that. Said no, we need to go to 77%. I find it all really funny. So now she's talking about today in her article she published on Medium this morning, which was scraped over at Zero Hedge. She said we need to do a full-on debt jubilee of student debt, which is roughly, the package she's put together is roughly $640 billion worth of student debt. Now, part of me understands where this is coming from. Yes, a hardcore libertarian. Yes, you should take responsibility for everything you have done and everything you will do, all of that stuff. And I've argued that debt jubilee is actually not the end of the world. That's not actually what bothers me about any of this. It does bother me to a greater or lesser extent. We're now in a situation where presidential candidates are now pandering to buy votes, knowing that people who overpaid for education, which was created by government subsidy of said education for the last 30 years as prices spiraled out of control alongside government subsidies, and the banks being more than willing to lend all this debt because they knew it couldn't be discharged in bankruptcy. And you can thank Democrats for that. Under Clinton, that all of these people who have done it the wrong way, all these people who have not bought their value, bought their education by not buying tremendous amounts of debt, and did it the right way, paying for it as they went, working their way through college or whatever, they get to continue to be disadvantaged because they are far outnumbered. They're absolutely dwarfed by the number of people who did it wrong. Right? And I've talked about this. I've talked about my friend who, borrowed $30,000 to get her master's, and now currently owes the government $125,000 because of taxes and penalties and all that stuff, which I consider absolutely and utterly punitive, right? And that when when her deferment period is over, she's going to owe all that debt's going to go on her income taxes for that year as earned income, and then she's going to be wrapped with a $30,000 tax bill, and then it's just going to continue in perpetuity. The whole thing is debt slavery, and it's awful. And don't get me wrong, Warren's not stupid for dialing in on this issue as for how unfair it all is. That's where she's not wrong. But a straight up debt jubilee is not the way of going about this. The way of going about it is, one, to change the terms of the debt, allow a certain proportion of it to be dischargeable in bankruptcy, and as well to do away with the massive income tax penalty that would come at the end of the quote-unquote deferment or minimum payment period. It's all designed to just continue to roll money and roll wealth up into the banking sector, which firmly at that level I get, and I understand how evil and how pernicious it is, and a fake populist and oligarch wannabe like Warren championing this issue is the height of richness, if you want to, and the height of irony, to be honest with you. But the second part of her proposal is the part that's actually offensive, because the reason we would have to do this $640 billion debt jubilee if she got her way, if she became president, is because of the massive subsidization of college education and the massive amount of redirected capital that moved into higher post-secondary education since the end of World War II. Now, some of that was money was well spent, and a lot of that money was malinvested. As a matter of fact, $640 billion of it can easily be argued that it has been malinvested. So therefore, she now saying not only do we need to do that, but we need to do free post-secondary education for everybody, is so we can double down on spending even more money on things that we can't afford. I know you're desperate for traction and viability, Lizzie, but seriously, love, let's just call a spade a spade. You're a moron. And we already have one economic ignoramus in the White House, and he runs a multi-billion-dollar business because of all of the Fed's free money. We really don't need a fake educator and a fake lawyer running a country on fake education with fake money and a fake economy. So that's the situation with that. On top of that, she needs to have a higher wealth tax and a higher asset tax and all of this stuff, and it's all insane. She's also pushed for ending the Electoral College and the Senate filibuster. All of this stuff is to ensure that democracy doesn't actually happen, because the whole point of killing the Electoral College is to allow the illegal immigration and open borders issue to turn the Electoral College to turn it either permanently blue or just change the demographics of the country in such a way the presidential elections are never in any doubt ever again, and therefore it's all over. She is all she is. At the end of the day, every bit of this proposal by Elizabeth Warren today is nothing more than her confirming to everybody that she is a good stooge of the oligarchy and a good stooge of the deep state and a good stooge for the DNC. Her job at this point as a lower tier, quote unquote, upper tier candidate, her job is to push Bernie Sanders even farther and farther to the left in order to make him less electable and to pave the way for establishment Joe Biden to do so. And at the end of the day, she can also position herself as Biden's VP candidate as the kooky Prague harpy, progressive harpy, who sits in the corner and says, no, really, I am one of you guys. No, really, I am. Please vote for Joe. He's a good guy. This is absolutely the DNC trying to push their establishment candidates and circle the wagons around their establishment candidates in the same way. I was talking the other day about Pelosi. Actually, I was talking about it on my market report for my patrons on Sunday, or not Sunday, last Wednesday, we did this. And I did about 10 minutes talking about Pelosi and her Sunday morning talk show circuit that she did, where she kept talking about, how, well, the hardcore progressives are only like 5 of them. No, there's like 100 of them, Nancy. I know your brain is cooked because you're 80 freaking years old and you're a moron anymore, and you've got your TIA victim and all of that stuff. But truth of the matter is, love, you've got a real problem and a real insurgency, because if they weren't a real and powerful force, you wouldn't have given the biggest moron in Congress, AOC, a seat on the Financial Services Committee. And I say that knowing that Maxine Waters is the chair. So it's absolutely and utterly insane to watch this play out, and you just understand that that's who Elizabeth Warren is. That's the upper limit of her potential as a presidential candidate. To be honest with you, when you really stop to think about the way she's positioning herself, she's Danielle Quayle at this point. She might as well misspell some common word and just to make sure that everybody knows what's going on, because she's literally a laughing stock, which is exactly what they want, so that if Biden were to ever win the presidency, there would be no doubt in anyone's mind what he would do. But he doesn't really need an insurance policy. What they need is the ability to sell that ticket to the progressives so that they can actually mount a campaign that would be somewhat credible against the Orange Obama. It's amazing. So it's that's really what I wanted to talk about. Where are we? So what are we at, 12 minutes? So I wasn't planning on going long today because we do have our live stream tonight at 8 o'clock, which I do every Monday night, as well as Friday night at 8:30. And tonight we're going to talk about Iran and Trump's waiver of the Iran sanctions and all of that. We're going to talk about that in detail tonight. I just published a blog post over at tomluongo.me discussing that. I'll probably talk about a little bit of this Warren thing in a little bit more detail on my blog tomorrow as well. But understand that that's all this is for Pocahontas. It's not a serious proposal on her part. If it gets traction, be out and beyond the hardcore progressive wing of the Democratic Party, then you can look for her, and you can look for the Democrats themselves, including Biden, to start embracing some of these more extreme positions, which will only make them even more unelectable come 2020. And if they don't become more unelectable come 2020, then we all have some serious discussions, about whether or not we want to continue living in their hellhole, because that's what they're going to create. So I find it all very funny that you have to remember that where this starts, it starts with a subsidization of education. It started, with the GI Bill after World War II. That once you subsidize something, you get more of it. Doesn't matter what it is. If you subsidize poverty, you get more poverty. You subsidize immigration, you get more immigration. You subsidize education, you get more education. If you subsidize healthcare, you get more people using the healthcare system. It's all that way. You have to remember that, because you set up the perverse incentive for people to go after the free money, because they don't have to work for it. All they have to do is go out and grab it. It's just low-hanging fruit. And when you, so it is what it comes down to, and it's not hard, and it doesn't matter whether or not you want it to be true or not. That you want these systems to be sustainable. You can't wish unsustainable systems into sustainability. And I know the Marxists would argue that's what the argument about perpetual growth and all this stuff. Perpetual growth, from a spending standpoint, is not perpetual growth. We use bad statistics in order to make those arguments. That's not what we're growing, per se. We have plenty of things. We have plenty of ways and plenty of opportunity to turn what is into what will be. And when they say that things like perpetual growth is, not sustainable, and that we have to kill the planet off, that's just nonsense. It's not true. We all don't have an optimal and idyllic life. Nature is still trying to kill us. That's all growth is. All growth is, in an economic sense, is trying to order up the universe in such a way as to be able to live a more comfortable life and a more predictable life so that we can reproduce. So that's what it comes down to. DTF on YouTube asks, will Warren further fracture the Dems? It's kind of looking that way. The Democrats at this point, are what they're trying to do, they're trying to circle the wagons again to stop Bernie Sanders from being the candidate because they think he's unelectable. The sad part about it is that the truth of the matter is that Bernie Sanders is probably the most electable of all of them. Beto O'Rourke is not electable. Neither is Joe Biden. Joe Biden's not electable as president. It's a freaking joke, dude. So but that's all they've got. And that should tell you how weak this field is, that their best, honestly, I think their best candidate from every angle is Kamala Harris. I mean, not personally. Personally, it would be Tulsi Gabbard. But just looking at things as a dispassionate kind of political observer, I'd say Kamala Harris probably has the best overall set of tools to get this done for them. That's it. And I'm not saying that she has any chance of winning, but they already have such a huge built-in advantage that there's so many people that just won't vote for Trump. That it's kind of crazy. Bernie will not win, friends. And I can tell you that right now. Bernie Sanders cannot beat Donald Trump. It's not possible. All Donald Trump has to do to beat Bernie Sanders in the 2020 election is to fire John Bolton and hold a couple of meetings with Vladimir Putin. That's all he's got to do. Because that's all he has to do. He will bring the hard core of his base back in the states that he needs to win. And if he shrugs off, and he's able to shrug off a massive dollar dislocation between now and November 2020, which is very likely given the trajectory of the European Union at this point, which will likely see a massive influx of capital into the United States, which will goose economic statistics here for about a year or two, just long enough for him to get reelected. And then after that, everything goes to hell in a handbasket all over the place. But I agree with Willie Brown. She does have the best tools for the job, says Alexander Khalif. Point. Stoyanovich reminds me on DLive, remember I am also simulcasting here on DLive, that Bernie is turning anti-war. Tulsi Gabbard is pulling him in that direction. Not by the polling numbers, but possibly by the social media presence. We'll see. And that's a good thing. And if Bernie wants to differentiate himself from Donald Trump, it's all he has to do. And all he has to do at this point is to start the process of becoming some form of anti-war candidate. It will force Trump back to the center on a lot of these issues. It will force him to stop playing the kinds of games that he is playing. So, his base is not Ann Coulter and Tucker Carlson, friends. I mean, they care about immigration, and the Democrats have completely blocked him on this. How does Bernie escape the ire of haters of rich white males? It's as if they believe he is none of the above. I know. I don't. How does he escape that? He's not going to. Because between now and then, the progressives, the Justice Democrats, and the hardcore progressives, the Cenk Uyghur wing of the Democratic Party is going to continue to go after Bernie Sanders as a means by which to advance their cause, which is to destroy the DNC. They are not going to ally themselves behind Bernie Sanders. As a matter of fact, as far as I can tell, they're probably behind many of the attacks against Bernie as well. That's how internecine the whole thing is at this point. So, we'll see. The truth of the matter is that, economics wins and the economy wins. And if the Fed is forced to lower interest rates or just hold interest rates where they are, and Europe is a mess, you will not beat people beat people by fanning the flames of social media. You won't do it. It's not going to happen. Trump's approval rating is higher than it's ever been in during his presidency right now. And that's not just a function of Russiagate being a dud. Everybody who's running for president right now for the Democrats looks like a fucking idiot. Period. Into the rank and file in La La Land, and the rest of us who are not committed to either party, and that's 40 to 45% of the electorate in this country. They're neither hardcore Democrats nor hardcore Republicans. The Democrats all look like morons. When I do believe, look, let me put it this way. I've always discounted Trump's approval rating by about 5%, saying things like Quinnipiac or CNN or whatever. If they said, well, his approval rating has dropped to an abysmal 39%, it was never that low. It was never lower than 45. When they have to admit that his polling numbers or approval numbers are 53%, they're probably closer to 58 to 60%. That's the truth, because of the way polling works. So I don't believe the polls. I just know how to discount them properly, because they're not completely full of shit. They're not off by 20 points. They're off by enough to move the narrative and to shift the Overton window. That's what they're for. I know Ron Paul doesn't support Trump. Neither do I. I ain't voting for him. That doesn't matter. Trump didn't win the election because I came out and voted for him. Trust me. Trump. The only reason Trump didn't win Florida, for example, by 7 to 8 points was because of Brenda Snipes in Broward County and systemic 3% voter fraud. That's it. Brenda Snipes, Miami-Dade. Those two places are shitholes. They are corruption central. And you discount that, you discount 3 points of that, and my prediction for Florida was +7. He won by 4. I was right then, and I'll be right, and I'll be right, and I'll be right again. The polls are garbage, but if you know how to read them, if you know how to read the bias in them, you can get trends. So widening the discussion, Flubberlub on DLive is asking me, Tom, have you seen that there's a legal challenge in the English courts about Brexit, stating that Brexit has already happened? Yes, I have seen it from the day that I've been following this since March 29th. I don't expect it to go very far. I will be shocked if it goes anywhere with Theresa May and the current Tory government and the current House of Lords. I don't see it, right? I think that everybody is ignoring this challenge, and that and the guts of it are such that that Theresa May's specifically asked for an amendment to not the Article 50 act of Parliament, because she couldn't, but there was some other act. I think it was not the Withdrawal Act, not the Article 50 Act, but one of the other acts. And because of that, the Brits actually did leave on March 29th, but they're not. And she had to do that, and she had to rewrite that law, because that's the only law she could rewrite, because they couldn't rewrite the Article 50 Withdrawal Act. So. You can put money on Trump losing Florida in 2020. Ain't going to happen. All right, let's see. So there are, Standard Dev says, I think there are at least 3 challenges to the Brexit situation. I think what will happen here is what you're going to watch with Brexit, and I'm going to go real quick here because we're with 25 minutes, and I will talk a lot of this stuff I want to talk about tonight. But what I think will happen with Brexit is the following. The Tories are scrambling around to try and get rid of Theresa May. They're actually talking about trying to get the rules changed so that they can actually oust her from office, because now they understand that she has completely and utterly betrayed the party and destroyed the party. The party is now facing extinction, as I wrote on Friday with both of the articles that I wrote over the weekend. The one that I published at Money Markets and the one that I published over at my blog. They're really kind of sister companion pieces to each other. If they can get that done, then they can force a general election. If they force a general election between now and if they try to do that and force a general election between now and May 23rd, when the European parliamentary elections happen, I expect there will be some form of leadership challenge within Labor in order to try and bolt together some form of vote on the withdrawal act, the current withdrawal treaty, some new version of it. Like Labor's wet dream of the current withdrawal act plus a permanent customs union in order to stop the European parliamentary elections. At that point, everything hits the fan. They'll try that. I don't know if they'll be successful. I don't think there's enough time for that, but God knows, anything is possible. So the reality is that most likely we'll see a leadership challenge sometime early this summer for Theresa May. She'll be removed from office. There'll be a general election, and depending on what happens in the European parliamentary elections, which could be explosive, we could see some kind of leadership challenge and leadership change happen then. I still think that the best bet overall is for the ERG, the European Research Group, to break with the Tories in the run-up to the general election, join Nigel Farage's Brexit party, form a new party, and use that as a means by which to form I'll give you an example. We have breakaway Whigs, we have the Republicans form, the GOP forms in 1854. Breakaway Whigs plus the Republicans elect Lincoln in 1860. And I think that's the model for what's going to happen with the Conservatives. And by the way, it's going to happen to Labor as well. And because not only is Farage going to pull in from the Tories on this, he's also going to pull in from the 5 million people up north who voted Labor, that everybody in Labor is throwing under the bus. The longer this goes on, the more anti-peace groups here have a reason to keep shooting and bombing and destabilizing this place. I know, Mojo Jojo. You should have never taken this long. And I feel terrible about what's happening in Ireland. So, that's about all I've got for right now, guys. We're going to talk about Brexit tonight. So, for those of you who joined the channel in the last couple of days, based on the stuff I did on Brexit over the weekend, come by tonight because we're going to talk about it again. We're also going to talk about, like I said, we're going to talk about geopolitics and some other things as well. Really want to talk about the oil markets. That's really important. And how Iran, Russia, Turkey's in the crossfire right now. It's crazy. So, all right. Let's see. Let me see if I've got any more of... Oh, and then we've got the Ukrainian elections, which are always insane. All right. Let's see. Tonight we are on at 8 o'clock. Plus or minus a couple of minutes. So make sure that you're subscribed on YouTube and you got notifications turned on, or here on DLive, and I'll be here within a couple of minutes of 8 o'clock, depending on how long it takes me to put together a front slide and all that happy stuff. So we'll go from there. All right, you guys take care. You have a great afternoon, because Calvin's about to start barking, and there he goes, because something's going on out there. There must have been a fox. So, all right, guys, 8. We'll talk. You guys be good. Be well. Keep your stick on the ice.